We are live.
Well, hello everybody out there in Facebook land. Shannon here. Shannon Hawk is here with the Albuquerque Hispano Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for joining us on our regular webinar series. This month sponsored by Comcast, huge partners here at the Chamber. Can't say thank you enough to Comcast and everything they've done for us over the years and continue to do to support the effort in the community and helping to reopen small businesses right now after we got through the last 3 months. And so Comcast, thank you, hats off. We'll be talking about Comcast all month, so thank you to them. Also want to thank our partners at New Mexico Tech. That is, excuse me, that is Mr. Carlos Romero, who sits on our board here at the Hispano Chamber, as well as all of the little elves behind the scene, Liam, Shay, and also Angelique, who is here on our staff, who works on our marketing and tech side of what we do here at the Chamber. So it takes a village, and we're thankful for them. So we've got a great topic today, guys. We're excited because our guest panel today has been members of the Chamber for a very long time and also extremely supportive of what we do here with small business. But before we get to them, speaking of small business, this is huge, and I really want you guys to take this in and understand the importance of this. Tomorrow, 9 a.m., in conjunction with City Councilor Clarissa Peña's office, the Hispano Chamber has partnered with too many to mention. We're going to come back to you live this afternoon and go through the bag itself, but with a great team of community partners to get small businesses a bag of PPE supplies, personal protective equipment supplies, because we're opening this week. Albuquerque is opening, New Mexico is opening, and there's a lot of regulations set in place, and we want to make sure that small businesses who have been closed that may not be able to afford the things that they need to get the business open and running has the ability to do so. Gloves, masks, sanitizer, thermometers. The first 500 through the door tomorrow will all get a touchless thermometer for their staff. And so there's a lot of different things that are in this bag. Like I said, we could go on and on. So we're going to come to you live this afternoon with all the breakdown. Please, you guys, go to our website, www.ahcnm.org, and please register. You must register. Once you register, you'll be getting an email with instructions on how to do our drive-through to pick up your bag tomorrow with the goodies. You're also going to have a Pepsi Rockstar station for all our Rockstar business owners. We're going to have hot dogs courtesy of the Gladiators and Pepsi, and the Gladiators are going to be giving away masks and swag. So I encourage you guys, please, if you know a small business owner under 5 employees that could use a little bit of a helping hand, that can use a bag of supplies to get them through the next week or two, please encourage them to register at the Hispano Chamber website. We want to give 1,000 bags away tomorrow, and we are reaching out to you, the community, to help us do so. So with that being said, speaking of small business, let's get to the topic today. So what I'd like to do is just do a simple introduction to Mr. Del Esparza. And Del, if you can introduce your team and tell us all about your company and what you do.
Well, thank you, first of all, Shannon, and thank you to the Hispano Chamber of Commerce. Obviously, a great asset that New Mexico has, and really a gem. And a perfect example is what you just said. Providing these PPE, the kind of equipment, sanitizers, masks, thermometers for small businesses that are they're really struggling to open up and trying to figure things out. There's no book that's been written about what we're going through, and so what you'll hear today is a tilt on that, if you will, talking about how to best position your company, your business from a marketing perspective, from an advertising perspective. And we've looked at history, and history not just in the United States, but internationally. In Asia, they went into this pandemic a lot earlier than in the United States. And so they came out of it earlier. We did a lot of research in that respective market to see what companies were doing, what they were doing right, what they were doing wrong, so that we could really offer some solid takeaways for any size business, whether they're a small business, mid-sized business, or a large business. And so looking forward to going through the deck with your members today. I'll introduce my team. Jamie Gross is our Vice President of Experience. He oversees all digital, anything digital and creative with the agency. We think as far as anything online, whether it's social, whether it's e-commerce, whether it's digital marketing, needs to integrate with creative elements such as effective messaging and great design. And so Jamie oversees that area. Heather Apodaca is a senior content writer, senior marketing writer, and is very, very deeply entrenched in the digital role that we play at Esparza. So Jamie and Heather will be ushering us through the bulk of the deck today.
Well, so first and foremost, I want to welcome you guys. Thank you so much for doing this with us. I think for the public out there that may not know, Esparza is a name in town when it comes to marketing, and we've done projects with you guys in the past that have been extremely successful. So we're so happy to partner with you and anything that we can. You guys support us every year. You are always constantly supporting for Gala. The things that we use, that money helps support small business programs, things like this that we do in the community. So a huge thank you and shout out to Start. I also want to say, I love Jamie's title. So we may have to steal that title. That is the way to be creative. I knew you were a marketing group because the title's amazing. And every organization should have an experienced manager of some sort, because it's important that we capture that. So take us through the experience today. What is our topic and what are we going to be looking at? And then let's just roll into starting the presentation.
Great. Well, if you want to share the deck, Heather, you can go and get started. And for anybody watching this, if you'd like to go ahead and just ping us on Facebook or the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, we'll provide a link for this deck. And so it is a lot of information, a lot of data. So feel free to take as many notes as you'd like, but also know that that we'll be able to send you a link to this as well.
And Dale, what we'll also do, if you guys will send me that link, I'll make sure that Angelique puts that up on the webpage where this webinar will be shown, and the public can go and find that as well. So we'll make sure and post that link for everybody watching as well.
Great. All right. So I think, Heather, are you sharing? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Can you not see?
Yeah, I can't see it yet.
Okay. Let me try and go and do it again.
We're good, Heather. We actually had it.
Oh, you did? Okay.
We're good, yeah.
You're good.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead. So really, we have 53 slides. The title of this next hour really is the Guide to Marketing in an Era of Change, and we're certainly going through an era of change. I want you to think about back in February, back in January, when we really started 2020, and the economy was booming. Businesses were booming internationally, domestically, here in New Mexico, here in Albuquerque. Really, at Esparza, we thought this was going to be one of the best years we've ever had. And then this thing called COVID happened, and really it changed everybody's lives. You think about everything that we took for granted, from going to the grocery store to going to restaurants or bars, really even going to the gym or getting a haircut done or getting your nails done. If we told you back in January how disruptive this was going to be and really change your life, people would have probably laughed at you, but it has. And so how do we take this huge shift in the way we behave as people and the way your customers behave as people to best position us? Because at the end of this, and when we come out of this, because we will, there will be some businesses that don't survive. But there will also be businesses that thrive. And the businesses that thrive are the ones that are doing the hard work, that are pivoting and shifting in a manner that makes the most sense. And so today we'll give you some examples, some suggestions, and some real takeaways of how to best position your company moving forward. So we have a quote here from John F. Kennedy. I think it's a great quote. You think of the word crisis, and really you could break it up into two characters. One is danger, and the other is opportunity. And I think as far as really we lean into opportunity. Anytime that there's a shift, anytime there's disruption, there's opportunity. And so how do we take advantage of this opportunity?
John F. Kennedy's quote that you've put on here, that is fantastic. And what a eye-opener for small business to see that. And wow, that's really an incredible Incredible quote.
It's a solid quote, you know, and I think people can look at crisis as the sky is falling, or they can look at it and step back and say, okay, how is the landscape changing? How are we positioned as a company? And how can we adjust and adapt based on the new reality? And so really at Esparza, we truly believe that this is an opportunity that doesn't come along every day. We use for examples, you know, Disney was founded in the recession. Microsoft was founded in the recession. Apple introduced the iPod during 2001 during a recession. You know, and that was, they talk about, you know, revolutionizing the way we listen to music. Kraft introduced Miracle Whip, which, what would the world be without Miracle Whip? And thank goodness it did back in 1933. There's even some local examples. Electric Playhouse, you know, which is an experiential brand new company that opened about a month before, you know, we had to close. You know, they shifted and they started doing takeout. They're doing a lot of things online. Matucci's restaurant opened up a brand new restaurant off of I-25. They really focused a lot on takeout. Their online experience was a lot more seamless. They offered meal kits and were distributing them to Albertsons and Smith's. So they looked at the landscape, how it shifted, how their business was structured, and they adapt. And ultimately, I think that, like I said earlier, they will reap the benefits when we come out of this.
They also just opened the brand new Bob's Burgers on 4th Street. And I'll tell you, I've never seen lines so long in my life. They're giving Krispy Kreme a run for their money. Remember when Krispy Kreme opened all the lines?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh, what's going on here?
Yeah, that's funny. Do you want to go ahead and lead us?
Yeah, so thanks, Del, and hi, everybody. So we've broken this presentation up into 3 sections. So in the first section, we're going to look at what some of the research around previous recessions tells us and get some takeaways from that. Then in the second section, we're going to look at this particular moment. So we know that any recession that we're likely going to be facing is going to be different. We've never had a recession based on a pandemic before. So we've dug into some of the data from the last couple of months and have pulled out some good takeaways for you there as well. And then we'll do a quick review and hopefully leave you with some really tangible and practical things that you can start doing today. We really want this to be a really useful and helpful hour. So we'll try to leave you with really actionable things in every section.
That sounds great.
All right, so what can we learn from past recessions? There's been a lot of research done around this, and we've spent a lot of time digging into it and looking through it, and we've pulled out 5 key takeaways for brands to be paying attention to during a recession as they're marketing. So 1, and we'll go through each of these in a little bit more detail, but 1, make cuts where it counts, focus on your core products and services, invest in ad spend as much as you can, maintain your share of voice, and then finally appeal to emotion. So what do those mean? So the first thing we're recommending you do is be really mindful and careful about any budget cuts that you're making. We know recessions are a time of belt tightening, but research has really shown that there are some areas where cuts that you can make are going to be really helpful, and some other areas where they're not as helpful. So this is an analysis of the PIMS database, and just for a little bit of background, since I'm going to reference it a couple of times. This was a database that was started by GE in the 1960s as they were trying to figure out why some business units were performing better than others. It's since been taken over by the Harvard Business School and expanded to thousands of different companies within the US. And they looked at how some companies made cuts during a recession and how those impacted their performance long term. And what they found was that cuts to manufacturing costs, administrative costs, and your spare capacity, those are all great places to be looking at in terms of belt tightening and budget cuts. But cuts that really can be harmful to your performance over the long term included new product innovations. So don't stop innovating. Anything that you have in the pipeline that you know your customers want, do everything you can to make sure that that's continuing to move forward. Cuts to product quality. We know that consumers are less loyal during recession times, during hard economic times. So the last thing you want to be doing is making any cuts around maintaining your product quality. And then finally around marketing. I think a lot of businesses think they can sort of ramp down their marketing spend and then bring it back up quickly when their budget is back. And what this study and other studies have shown us is that even ramping down for a small period of time can have some really long-term impacts on the health of your business.
And you know, it's quite interesting that you bring that up, and I'm so glad that that's on your slide because, you know, we have reached out to every one of our members, close to 1,100 members over the last 3 months, probably more than once or twice each of them. And you know, that's the first thing they all say that they've cut is their marketing budget. And it boggles my brain. I'm like, you know, you still need to be relevant during this time. So thank you.
Yes.
Hope y'all are listening out there. We're going to home because it's important that you continue that. Whatever that budget was, stick with it.
Yes, absolutely. And we're going to get into that a little bit more and some of the rationale behind that a little bit more as we go. So then focus on your core products and services. This is another study that we looked at a lot that the Harvard Business Review did during the 2008 recession. They did a really comprehensive look at the data and really tried to create a roadmap for businesses in terms of how they can respond during recession times. And they really recommended performing a little bit of a triage on your products and services and separating them into those poor survival prospects, those that maybe have declining sales, but you think you have a plan for stabilizing, and then those that are your core products and services that are likely to flourish. And so as you're making any budget cuts that you need to make, really focusing on cutting away anything from those poor survival prospects and putting your spend toward those core products and services that you know can help carry you through this time. So then our third recommendation, as we were just sort of talking about, is to maintain your ad spend, and not just maintain it, but invest more in ad spend if you can. We know that as an advertising agency coming to you saying you have to invest during a recession can seem a little bit self-serving, but bear with us because the research and the data really does support that. Investing in advertising during a recession is going to give you a many-fold return on that investment. As Del said, there's opportunity out there in the marketplace during a recession, and investing in ad spend is a great way to capitalize on that opportunity. So if you can't continue to invest more, it's really important that you at least maintain the spend that you already have. So this is another study around that same PIMS database that I mentioned before, and it's looking at a single brand in 2 regions. In region A, that brand maintained their ad spend. They kept it the same as it was before. In region B, they cut it down to nothing in the first year. And so you see their market share decrease really quickly over year 1. But then in year 2, that brand in region B, they increased their spend again, back up to normal levels. But you didn't see their market share increase with it. So this is really just telling us that it is really difficult to regain brand equity that you've lost by cutting your marketing budget. You really want to try and maintain that budget wherever possible. And there's a couple of reasons why your advertising dollars are going to go further during a recession. One is that there's just less demand out there in the marketplace during this time. There's less competition. Any ad that you can get out there is going to stand out more. There's going to be less noise competing with it. With less demand, there's also lower costs. So you're able to get much better placements for the same price. So all of this is just pointing to, as an advertiser, you get a lot more value out there in the marketplace during a recession than you would during normal time. So if you do have the dollars to invest, it's a really, really good time to make advertising investments. And then our fourth recommendation, based on our research, is to maintain your share of voice as much as possible and to really focus on maintaining that share of voice among your core customer group. So share of voice, for those who aren't familiar with the term, is really just a measure of the market that you own as compared to your competitors. So this can be measured by like mentions on social, hashtag usage. There's lots of different ways to look at it. But so really focusing on staying top of mind for those core customers that are going to help carry you through the recession, and putting your spend toward that group. Not as much focusing on prospecting or reactivating latent customers, but really keeping your relevance to that core group of people. There's a couple of reasons for this. One is that, as I mentioned before, we know consumers are much less loyal during a recession than they are during normal times. They're more price sensitive. They're more likely to try a brand they haven't tried before. So if you're not focused on maintaining your relevance and staying top of mind for those customers, they're more likely to go try someone else during this time. So really focus on those guys. Now, if you're a challenger brand or you're new to the marketplace, or you are trying to gain market share against some bigger competitors, a recession can also be a really great opportunity and time to do that, because there is a lot of opportunity in the marketplace. Advertising costs are cheaper. There's a lot you can do if you're a challenger brand around this. And then our final recommendation is to appeal to emotion. I think a lot of times people really want to focus on big sales and discounts during difficult economic times. And while you can do some of that, it's also important to maintain an emotional connection and to bake that into your marketing and your advertising, particularly for those core customers that you're really focused on. So make sure that you are keeping an emotional appeal in your marketing and advertising. Don't get too focused on just discount pricing. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jamie, who's going to go through some examples.
Thanks, Heather. Hi, everybody. My name is Jamie. I'm the VP of Experience, coolest title ever. But that's what you get when you get to choose your own title. That happens. So these three examples are different approaches that big brands have taken during a recession to really take that opportunity, some of those steps. And the first example comes from the 1990-1991 recession. And McDonald's at the time in the 80s was the market leader, coming into the 90s was the market leader. They hit this recession and they dramatically pulled back their marketing, particularly around their dollar menu, around their value menu. This really left a big opportunity for Pizza Hut and Taco Bell to jump right in. And Taco Bell they did just that. If you remember, they had the little Chihuahua that they're floating around, and they had the value menu with that. They grew their sales from this circumstance by 40%. And Pizza Hut grew their sales by 61%. I think these were the days where you had the $5 pizzas. They were challenging McDonald's value menu directly and paying attention to this brand's movements in marketing. So right now, even small, mid-sized businesses, take a look at what your competitors are doing on Google. Search some of those keywords that you knew they were bidding against. Are you seeing any movement in any of that? Are they pulling back? Because it does create opportunity. It drives ad spend down, and it opens up those ads to new customers, which is fantastic. The second opportunity that we're going to share with you is a different approach, and it comes from the 2008 recession, the Great Recession, as it was dubbed. And this is from T-Mobile. So T-Mobile kind of had a scrappy upbringing from the get-go. They were voice stream at one point. They acquired Sprint. There's a lot of movement by T-Mobile. But what they did with their brand was really reinvent their branding and overall look and reach. Around 2008 was the height of this big smartphone movement and the virality of some of these social media platforms that we started seeing taking off. So they created a new campaign called Likes for Sharing, which essentially they emptied out a train station and had a giant choreographed dance group, which they filmed on mobile and shared on social, which was essentially the birth of the flash mob. So you could thank T-Mobile for that. But during that time, they grew their sales by 29%. So one brand boosting marketing and the other brand really taking a look at their overall look and feel and messaging and figuring out where those opportunities are. And the last brand comes from the same recession, 2008, 2009, but a different approach. This comes about from Amazon. So Amazon, for the longest time, was a third-party products and service seller. During this recession, they really took a step back and said, how can we market better in the future? How can we increase the margins we have as we're selling online, offer bigger promotions on things like Cyber Monday, Black Friday, Cyber Weekend? And this was the birth of the Kindle and that whole product line. So if you really pay attention to Amazon throughout the years, they're really pushing the Kindle line, the Alexa line, and then they have their big, Amazon services. And that all sprung out from the Great Recession. So those are three different approaches, and it really comes comes down to you reflecting on your business and what would work for you. So on that note, I'll turn it back over to Heather.
Yeah, hey again. So that section was sort of all about what we can learn from past recessions. And I think there's a lot of really good information and research that's been done that we can use to move businesses forward. But we also know that this moment is different. We've never had a recession based on a pandemic before. Nobody really knows what that's going to look like. But at Esparza, we've spent a lot of the last 2 months sort of digging into the data, trying to look into really good consumer research out there to help build plans for our clients. And so we want to share some of that with you in this section. So again, we've sort of broken it down into 5 key takeaways that we think you should be paying attention to during this time. And we'll go through each of these a little bit more. 1, build your quarantine playbook. 2, really work on knowing your customers in depth. 3, review your brand voice everywhere it exists. 4, focus on e-commerce, and then pivot your ad spend to measurable, really high ROI placements. So we'll talk a little bit more about what each of those mean. Okay, so this is our first recommendation, build your quarantine playbook. We know experts are recommending it's going to take a while to develop a vaccine. People are talking about second waves, and while we all really, really hope that that doesn't happen, we think that it's really important as a brand and as a business to be prepared. So building your quarantine playbook really means sitting down, creating a plan for the first couple of weeks following an outbreak, as well as for an extended quarantine, identifying what are those key messages that you're going to be putting out there for customers and for your community. What does your internal and external communication plan look like? And really looking at data from your customers, from your products to help you build this. So we're going to go through a little bit of industry-wide data that'll hopefully help you start to think about what this can look like. But we also really recommend taking a look at how your own customers are reacting on your website, on your social channels, all of those places. So this is looking at some information from Google paid search. And what we saw when we looked back was that there was a really sharp decline in clicks and conversions on Google immediately following sort of the lockdown orders going into place and the news about the pandemic really becoming front of mind. The world changed really quickly, and the way people were interacting and shopping changed with it. So as you're building your playbook, it's sort of important to have some of these trends in mind. So we saw it drop off really sharply in March and hold down, and it was down for about 4 weeks. And then we saw it rise really dramatically starting in early April. So people were not shopping, interacting as they were for about a month. And then in early April, even though people were still in their homes, they were going back to sort of searching and shopping on the internet as they had pre-COVID. So things to think about as you're building your playbook. When we actually looked at display and shopping data from Google, the change was even more dramatic. So shopping campaigns on Google were up 40% as opposed to pre-COVID levels. Those Google Display Network campaigns, they were up over 25%. So people were out there looking for products and services, and they were converting during April. So as you're thinking about how you might respond if this happens again, I think some of these trends are really important to know and to have in mind.
And I also think, Heather, just not just in a pandemic, I think just crisis in general. You could look at this even if you have a personal crisis within your business or how you're doing it. I mean, this is really great information, and I think it really smacks us in the face that these are not numbers we had seen before, we've looked at. That's why you guys are the experts sharing. And I think that this is really important for small business owners to look at this and think about their small business, not just in the terms of pandemic or quarantine, but how does this apply now and in the future? Because we never know what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why we think it's so important to sort of sit down and take some time to prepare so you can react quickly in the future. So that was Google data. This is looking at some data from Facebook, which is one of the other big data aggregators out there that can help us understand consumer behavior. So in Q1, Facebook daily active users were up by 11%. And that may not seem like a huge number, but for Facebook in North America, that was a huge number. They had really struggled in that market to see those numbers go up. And so, we know that people were at home, they couldn't connect with friends and family, they were using social platforms as a way to do that. At the same time that we saw huge numbers of people on the platforms, we saw the cost of advertising really decrease in those platforms. So this is looking at November versus March, and the cost of 1,000 impressions on Facebook, and it went down dramatically. So this is, again, all just to point to, if your business is prepared with a really timely message that's really tuned to the moment and to your audience, there's some opportunity out there for you. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jamie.
Cool. Number 2 is know your customers. And really, when we say that, we mean know what your customers look like, know where they shop, know what stage in the sales cycle they're in. So it's really developing a rounded view of your customers. But more importantly, know who your true fan customers are. The true fans that are going to go out, they're going to make more referrals, they're going to sing your praises online from rooftops. So this section really is looking at knowing your customers and some data that kind of can support that. Identifying high performing channels, I think right now, if ever, is really, really important. What channels are driving new customer activity towards you? And what channels are you spending money in and you're not seeing results? Let data make that decision. Sometimes, and for me, I wake up and I have an initial gut reaction on like ad spend or something. I want to turn everything off. And some businesses do that. Look at the data, let the data inform the gut and look to the future. Consider what industry you're in and consider your location, because industry and geography really are 2 key factors that could kind of change some of the way we anticipate or look at some of this data. And then understand where your customers are making their decision, first decision to click on the ad, and then the sales decision, whether it be a new lead or a sale on an e-commerce site. All of these things really add up to being a lot more efficient with your ad spend. I've had a few startups in my life, and I've been around a lot of great businesses. And really, the idea here is being as efficient with your ad spend as possible, making slow movements over time, and being where the customers are making those decisions. And right now, streaming video, social media, Google paid search, Facebook, as you saw with previous slides, they're being heavily used. And so that's really where we want to be. So let's start looking at some of this data. Okay, so the very first thing, and we hear this a lot, is we're going to get back to the new normal. What does that look like? There's a survey by payments.com, and they asked just that. What does getting back to normal mean, essentially? And I think we can anticipate exactly what it means, because we've been through it together as a society. But really, going back to normal means seeing friends and family again, dining out in restaurants, engaging in leisurely activities, shopping in stores. It's really reconnecting with those things that make them feel safe, that make them feel they're part of the community again. But they're cautious about these things. They're extremely cautious about these things, and understanding that about your customers puts your marketing in a much better place, puts that message in a much better place. So the new normal really is talking about what is that new consumer really going to do? And what we're seeing overall is they're engaged online, but they're taking a bit longer to make some of these decisions. So the next slide has a little bit of data around this. This is data from our partners over at Google. This is looking at, per industry, the Google searches and activity going online during the months of quarantine, broken out by industry. Industries that are up right now heavily in searching: finance. There's a lot of searches around the payment plan, a lot of things that people are looking for, the PPP, food, healthcare, media, things that are down, construction, education, agriculture. But what we're seeing is the industries that are down the most, that's where the innovation is really coming from. There's a box that has been put around them, and then that creativity is allowing us to really broaden out some of this tech. Looking at more specifically now the conversions, the performance of some of these industries. Industries that increase conversions: nonprofits, charities, health and medical, business management, finance, beauty and personal care, and on-demand media. So the reason we look at geography as well, because this is where this industries of mixed performance, geography has a huge impact, particularly around real estate. Really depends on where you're at in the country, what market you're in, home improvement, automotive, etc., legal services. Now, industries with steep declines, but again, industries probably with the most opportunity and the most innovation we've seen coming from industries in travel and tourism, bars and restaurants, live entertainment, conferences, sports and fitness, yoga studios going online and live streaming their events. So if you're in one of these groups, take a step back, look at the data, and then look at what your competitors are doing, and then look at ways to innovate, look at ways to get online. This next slide that we're going to share with you is actually number 3. So review your brand voice.
All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit more about this. This is our 3rd recommendation, and we know it can seem sort of big and it can seem sort of amorphous, so we're going to try and break it down for you a little bit. The world has really changed in the last few months, and it's sort of continuing to change. So it's really important that you take a moment to review your brand voice and sort of update it to our present moment, and make sure that you are looking at every channel where it might exist, from your website to your social media presence to any automated messages that you have going out, auditing all of those places with an eye for consistency and with an eye for just our present moment, and updating all of that messaging that you have out there. And then really thinking about some of the channels that you might not think about when you think about your brand voice. So if somebody leaves a comment on a social post, what does your response sound like there? Is that consistent and updated? That's really important. What if somebody calls, what is that brand voice going to be communicated there? So making sure that you're talking to your employees, you're talking to people who are responding to customers, and making sure that they are reflecting that sort of empathetic, really reassuring and helpful voice that you want to be putting out there right now. And then really thinking about how consumer sentiment is shifting. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go, but things are changing quickly, and so it's important to sort of stay on top of that as much as you can. So the first thing, don't go dark. I think a lot of times people, when they don't know how to respond, their tendency is to not respond at all. And what the research shows us is that people want to hear from you during uncertain times. Don't go out and start spamming people, but they find it reassuring to hear from brands that they know and that they trust. They want to hear how you're, what you're doing to help your community, how you're responding. So don't be afraid to send those types of messages out during times like this. Consumers find it helpful and reassuring. And then really lead your marketing and your messaging with sort of empathy and helpfulness during uncertain times. There have been a lot of studies around this, but people really want to see companies and brands putting people before profits. And they're saying that how you respond during this time is really going to impact how they interact and shop with you in the future. This is particularly true for millennials and Gen Z. So if those generations are in your core audience, you want to pay extra attention to this area, and to make sure that you're sort of getting it right everywhere at all of your touch points. And then pay attention to shifting consumer sentiment. So this is a recent study that came out just in the last week that's indicating that people are getting sick of hearing about the pandemic. They're ready for something else in the news. They are ready to hear brands start talking about something else. So not all of your messaging needs to be the sort of we're in it together message, heavy-handed pandemic messaging all the time. It's okay to talk about other things. It's not just okay, people want to start hearing those other things. So start working that back into your messaging. Certainly be mindful of the times that we're in, but it's okay to talk about other things. And Jamie's going to talk through number 4.
E-commerce, really the elephant in the room, e-commerce. It's something we've been talking about probably for the past 20 years, and some folks have been grabbing onto it right away, and they've been building that, and other folks are kind of using this as an opportunity to get online. And that's okay. I think e-commerce really at the end of the day is about convenience for consumers. So if it makes sense for your brand, I think that definitely right now that convenience has been needed. So the pandemic, really what it has done, it has sped up the digital transformation for every single business, whether it be internal kind of operations or communications with Zoom and WebEx and things like this that going live, or building out a more robust digital marketing campaign. I think that this really just sped things up. It wasn't a change point necessarily. First and foremost, audit your e-commerce capabilities. If you have a website, do you have Google Analytics installed on your website or some sort of analytics software that you can get data from that? And if you have a web developer, ask them. Make sure that you are able to collect data on page views, clicks, steps people take to a conversion. And if you're able to get that data, then you can start making decisions based off of it on how to improve that customer experience on your website. Right now, more than ever, there's so many companies offering great marketing technology, offering great fulfillment, shipping, services that are plug and play almost. So look for partnerships. Shopify is a great partner in the e-commerce realm, especially for small and mid-sized businesses looking to get online quickly. Squarespace, if you're smaller and you're independent, obviously Etsy and Amazon are great places to start as well. But jump in and test things out and see what's working for you. There's a big play within the e-commerce realm around just optimizing for conversions. That your website that you just launched, that one was good, but a great website is never finished. That you're always looking at every page and like, how can I really improve this? That's what Amazon does. So reassure your customers with things like in-stock messaging, increased social proof, reviews, because right now everyone has been through a big trauma and we're very careful in our decision making. Where we choose to invest our dollars in the products we pick and the services we choose, these indicators of things being in stock or giving shipping times, those really comfort us as consumers. So put all of that stuff forward. Things like easy returns. If I have problems with this product, can I return it? Look at all of those things. Right now, we're going to jump into some data around e-commerce. So United States and Canadian retailers online, this has had a tremendous spike. So this is looking at year-over-year growth. Growth from March to about mid-April was up 68%. And then growth year-over-year, by the time mid-April, we're up 90%. So people are online, they're engaged, and they're shopping online more than ever. That's a comfort that has been around a long time, but now we're forcing certain folks to do that, given the circumstance. So the next slide shows a bit more, is e-commerce right for me, but a bit more data on the industries that specifically struggled with e-commerce in the past. Apparel and accessories is one of those. How can I sell clothes online? You know, I have sizing problems. I have these issues with returns and shipping, whatever that might be. But what we've seen, so the yellow line is 2019, and that blue line is 2020. You could see that we were trending pretty solid up until that pandemic. And even in this category, people are just shopping. They're shopping online. And there's been a lot of innovation over the past year around sizing certain things. If you guys follow Warby Parker, which is a great brand selling glasses, you could use AR and show the pair of glasses on your face. So there's a lot of technology that can support different industries right now. So look to those partnerships. And the next slide. Okay, so traditional stores. This has been something that we've been paying attention to for a long while now. It's kind of been told that the death of retail or the death of brick and mortar will occur, but that's not going to happen. Things are changing, things are adapting, and for the first time, we've seen stores that we would dub more traditional, kind of big box, places like Macy's. They're getting some of their first online sales from new customers coming in on their website. That's fantastic because a first sale on a website, you can collect a phone number, you can collect an email, you collect data that you could start email marketing to these folks. You can upload those emails to Google and to Facebook to start remarketing to them there, building customer profiles with some of their data. So if you can collect a piece of data like an email or a phone number on your e-commerce site, now's the time, and we're seeing a big movement in that, up by 89% with some of these more traditional stores as well. And then a recent report said that consumer appetite for online shopping is going to continue to grow as lockdowns are eased. 59% of consumers that had high levels of interaction with physical stores, only 24% are expected to return to that level. And I think that if your business sells a product, if you make a product and you don't have an e-commerce site, it's definitely important to get online right now and make that product available to consumers, because this is not going away. And next slide. And again, just to reiterate, COVID-19 isn't the end of brick and mortar. It's by far that. Things are changing, and things have been changing for a long time. What we've seen in the year 2000 to 2000, the years 2000 to 2010-ish, there was a lot of talk of this death of brick and mortar. But really, retail is changing. That in-person experience changed. People want more things. Places like Electric Playhouse, with that experiential factor, are really important right now, and I think that that's going to continue to grow. So it's really about decentralizing your marketing, decentralizing your ability to take an order. Because when events happen like this, and you're unable to be in person to take that order, you want to be able to have a site and a system that can get those orders in. So I think that's most important.
All right, so our final recommendation, again, is to maintain ad spend. We know that these are difficult times for a lot of businesses, and so that's not always going to be possible. So we have some ideas and thoughts for you around ways you can keep your share of voice high, even if you can't increase or maintain your spend. First is to look at first-party data, and we'll talk a little bit more about what that is and how you can use it. And then to focus on tactics that are measurable. Digital channels make it really easy for us to see what's working and what's not. So to make sure that you're focusing on measurable tactics that have a clear ROI, and then really to test. So this is something that digital channels make it easy for us to do as well. And it's important for a couple of reasons. One, this is a time of change. And so the best way to understand where your customers' heads are and what they're thinking and what they're going to respond to is to test and see what they're actually responding to. And there's some easy ways that you can do that. And then it's going to help you just really get the most out of your spend as well, because you can test, see what's working, what's not, and then only put your spend toward those channels and those campaigns that are really showing a return for you. So this is just a really quick snapshot of how other businesses are responding to the pandemic. So unfortunately, 50% of businesses are looking at cutting their marketing according to this study. So if that's you, if that's something you need to do, what are some things you can do to maintain, stay top of mind for your customers? One thing that we really think you need to be paying attention to is first-person data. And that's just, Jamie mentioned it before, but anytime somebody gives you a piece of information about them, so an email address, a phone number, a physical mailing address, making sure you have a system to manage those, and then ways that you can put those into use. And there's a lot of tactics that you can use in order to do that. Email marketing is a great option there. It's really low cost. It'll get you in front of a lot of your high value customers. You can do it on a regular basis. You don't have to put a lot into it, and it has a really high ROI. Some of the texting campaigns out there and phone campaigns have been shown really high returns as well. That's another way of using your own data. So you're not having to go out to a third party in order to purchase impressions. You can get in front of your own customers really easily by using this data. And then looking at some content marketing and some inbound marketing efforts, those are also great, really great options when you don't have as high of a spend. So what kinds of content can you create that your customers are going to be interested in during this time? So you can pull those customers into your site as opposed to going out and purchasing an ad somewhere. So content marketing, SEO, PR, these are all things that if you need to reduce your spend, these are good ways that you can stay top of mind for customers. So a couple of examples that'll hopefully maybe inspire you a little bit. IKEA has done a really great job of marketing through this entire thing. If you're interested, go and Google some of the ads they put out. But a really small thing that they did that I think was really effective was they just released their recipe for Swedish meatballs. People love these. I know it was effective because my husband came home with it and put it on our refrigerator, and we don't even have an IKEA in New Mexico. But it generated a huge amount of buzz. They were trending on Twitter for a while. They were on all the morning talk shows, and it didn't cost them anything to do. They put it on their website. They sent out a press release, talked about it a little bit on social media, and it sort of took off. So think about how you can use PR for your business as a way to sort of gain some buzz in a low cost way.
Earned media.
Yes, exactly. Earned media. And then the second example is West Elm. So West Elm is a home furnishings company that's primarily online. And they released a series of Zoom video backgrounds during this whole thing. So we are all on conference calls right now. Nobody wants to see your messy living room. So West Elm released a series of Zoom video backgrounds that people could download for free. They featured their products in them. This was a really low cost thing for them. They used photography that they already had. It got them in front of a lot of new consumers. It generated a lot of buzz. It was a really smart way of using content marketing that didn't cost them a lot of money. So think about who your customers are and what they might be wanting in this area, and how can you reach them through some of these more non-traditional ways of marketing. And then we kind of just want to wrap up with, there is no one right answer, and that can be both scary and reassuring, but your response should really depend on your industry and your customers. And so just to drive that home a little bit, we have a couple of examples for you of big brands that responded in totally different ways to this situation. So Coca-Cola, they paused all of their TV ads for 7 weeks. They were seeing revenue really drop as concerts were canceled, events were canceled, sporting events were canceled. And they decided that for them, the right thing was just to come off the air for a little bit. And so that's what they did. They recently resumed advertising as NASCAR came back online, and some of the other sports have started coming back up. But for them and their brand, that was the right decision at that time. We look at another brand like Procter Gamble. They doubled down on their ad spend during the last few months. They really saw it as an opportunity to go out and get new customers and get their products in front of customers who maybe hadn't tried them before. And that was the right response for that brand. So really taking a hard look at your customers and your industry and your data, and coming up with a plan. And we hope some of these thoughts and ideas and some of this research can help you do that. So I'm going to turn things back over to Del now. Oh, Del, I think you might be muted.
The joys of—
You said some really great stuff.
Conference, video conferencing. Thanks, Heather, and thanks, Jamie. And really what we try to do is we try to distill probably a semester's worth of content and information into 45 minutes, almost an hour. And so hopefully there's some really good takeaways. Like Heather said, there is no right answer. There's only your right answer. And understanding your industry, where your customers are working. I'll just go through real quickly a recap. Build that playbook, and to Shannon's point earlier, whether it's coming out of a quarantine, or whether it's a pandemic, or whether it's a down market, or whether it's just a shift in your competitive landscape, there should always be a playbook. It's the people that are most organized, the hardest worker, the people that study the most that tend to be the luckiest. It's not luck that brings success. It really is a lot of hard work in the playbook.
Preparation.
Yeah.
Preparation.
Know your customer. If you don't have Google Analytics, all you have to do is actually Google how to download Google Analytics and get it on your website. You'll gain some really good insight and perspective on how your customers are navigating through your website. Know your brand voice. Don't be tone deaf to what's happening right now. There's a lot of tension. There's a lot of protesting going on right now. Know that that's happening, and so be sensitive to to what's occurring in our society. And again, look at how you're selling. We talked a lot about e-commerce. If nothing, in the last 3 months, what our society has become much more comfortable with is e-commerce. And so we took what probably would have taken 3 years and distilled it into 3 months as it relates to consumers' comfort level with e-commerce. And put as much money as you possibly can into high return on investment marketing and advertising. If you have mentors, seek out mentors. You could certainly ping any of us at Esparza. We'd be more than happy to give you guys any advice, any feedback, any counsel that we can. So Shannon, I'd like to thank you again in the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce for this platform and for facilitating this. I'd like to thank Comcast for sponsoring this. What a great resource it is to businesses of any size here in Albuquerque.
Well, and I have to say, Dale, this presentation was absolutely fantastic. And I say that because it's always nice to learn something new. And anytime that you can walk away with more information that you can share, in our case, with members, those little tidbits of info. And I love that you guys recapped, because that's something that I've gotten really, really good at while hosting the webinars. And so just a couple of key points that I wanted to pull out as well. These are things that have been either asked of us or people have reached out to us about, what am I going to do? I've been closed for 3 months. I had to cut this, I had to cut that, whatever their concerns were. I really loved that you guys said, yes, you have to assess and cut where you need to, and a lot of times that's budget, but you cannot ever cut quality, and you cannot cut your marketing. And I know right now those businesses that had to cut marketing are going, darn, I wish I hadn't done that, because now I'm open and now I'm competing with thousands of other businesses opening, and into that brand recognition. They're probably regretting that a little bit now, but it's okay. Now we know moving forward, and we know that because we should all have a playbook in our hands. And I love the fact that, this is, if anything, the pandemic has taught people prep, because you would have never guessed that, we talked about online shopping. I mean, I've never purchased groceries online. That's ridiculous to me. And all I've done for 2 months now is purchase groceries online. And it worked out incredibly well, and it's a time saver, and it's for me, it worked. And these are things that we would have never done. So, the preparation, I think, was really, really huge. And I think something that you guys said that I think is the most important, and only because we started doing it here at the Chamber, is tracking your data. Analytics and data can really tell you how to guide your organization or your business. And so if you don't be cognizant of how important that is, then you might have to go back and go, I'm not driving traffic, or my hours that I thought were doing so great are not working, and having to readjust. But without the data, it's like driving blind, because you don't really know what the consumer wants at this point. So I really feel like this was such a great topic, and I can't wait to get that link and share it. I think that we're also going to be sharing it in our weekly highlights, because this is such a really thorough presentation, and being able to compare and understand why Taco Bell does this, and why Coca-Cola does that, or whatever those connections were, really help us to connect to the market and make us understand, I see how the big businesses do it. I mean, I love the IKEA story, because that's amazing. I mean, how many to adjust and simply say one thing and it's viral. Everything's viral these days, so we loved it. I'm super excited you guys could join us today. So a big thank you to the Esparza team and Del Esparza, and also a huge thank you to Comcast. Comcast is, our partner this month. They are supporting us, which is helping us support small businesses by keeping, whether it's the webinar series or the personal protective equipment giveaway tomorrow to small businesses, whether it's feeding the front lines, whatever it is that we're doing here in the community as an organization, partners such as Comcast to help us make that a reality for small business. So thank you, Comcast. Thank you, New Mexico Tech. Thank you again to Del Esparza and team. And next Monday, guys, we'll be back with another new topic to help us part of our business economic recovery series this month with Comcast. Have a super great Wednesday and a wonderful weekend, and we will see you guys next Monday. Bye, everybody.
Bye.